Good evening, everyone. We will get started in just a minute or two. We're going to go ahead and let a few more people jump on to the webinar, and we will get started with the program. All right, it looks like we have a good group of folks that have already joined us. So I think we're good to get started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Arlington County's webinar on electric leaf blowers. My name is Jennifer Fioretti, and I'm the Assistant County Manager in the Climate Policy Office. It's a pleasure to have you this evening join us for the webinar. Tonight is designed to hear from landscape companies that are using electric leaf blowers in their businesses and to learn more about how they operate and maintain them. This event is part of the county's public engagement asking Arlington residents and businesses whether the county should consider prohibiting the year-round use of gas-powered leaf blowers in Arlington. This engagement began last month and is coming to an end when our feedback form closes at 11:59 p.m. this evening. Here's a brief overview of our agenda tonight. We'll start by having each of our panelists introduce themselves and their business. Then we will move into the facilitated portion of the meeting where I will call on the panelists to answer questions related to their experience in operations and maintenance of electric leaf blowers. Following that, time permitting, we'll hold a question and answer session where we will take questions from meeting participants. We anticipate, of course, wrapping up within the hour. I'm also joined this evening by several colleagues who are here to support our event. Rich Dooley, our Director of Climate Policy in the Climate Policy Office, and Rena Lara, Climate Communications Specialist, also within the Climate Policy Office. Our team will help ensure everything goes smoothly and will assist in managing your questions during the Q&A segment. The entire discussion this evening will be recorded and will be made available on the county leaf blower website. As we go through the presentation, please feel free to submit your questions at any time using the Q&A function in your webinar toolbar. The chat function is disabled, so just remember it's the Q&A side that you want to use. To make our session as efficient as possible, we will group similar questions by topic, so we may not address them all in the exact order that we receive them. Of course, we will do our best to cover all of the major themes and inquiries, and we'll be bringing all of that information together, and we'll share that on our county website. And to find our leaf blower website, go to arlingtonva.us and .org, and then look for the search for leaf blowers, excuse me. So thank you again for joining us tonight. Let's get started. On our panel this evening, we have David Jimenez, CEO of Littlefoot Lawn Care. We have Kevin Boodram, CEO of Serenity Lawn, Anna Kelly, and Randall Hitchings, both from Sust Landscaping, and they're both operation managers. So with that, we're going to go ahead and start with our first panelist. David Jimenez, please go ahead and take it away for us.
Hello, everybody. My name is David Jimenez. I'm the owner of Littlefoot Lawn Care. Sorry, I look a little red. It's just the lighting. So sorry about that. But yeah, I started Littlefoot in late 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. However, I got inspired by a company I used to work for back in college called Solar Mowing in Bethesda, which was recently purchased by Sust. So it was Anna, who is another panelist on here, and her mother, Lynn, is the one that hired me. So she inspired me to learn more about organic lawn care principles. And so after working with her, I've always wanted to start my own business. And so that's where I started Littlefoot. And so we've been operating since got our first customers in the spring of 21. And now we're in our 5th season of business, and we're still growing, we're still mowing, and yeah, there's a lot to there's a lot of customers in the Northern Virginia area that are looking for this kind of service with all electric equipment. Thank you.
Great, thank you, David. Next up, Rena, we have Kevin Boodram. Go ahead, Kevin.
I'm the founder of Robotic Lawn Care. We're an all-electric and robotic lawn care company headquartered in Long Island. And started the company in 2021 because I got fed up with all the noise from gas lawn equipment. We started using all-electric mowers, trimmers, blowers to do regular weekly maintenance as well as cleanups. As we grew, we turned to robotics. We couldn't hire fast enough to meet the demand. And then we eventually became a robot.
It looks like Kevin maybe paused on our end. We are looking into that right now. All right. Okay, so Kevin, I think we lost you for about the last minute of your introduction. Do you mind, just for the group, do you mind repeating that last part? You said you moved over to robotics, and then that's, I think, where we lost you. I think it's happening again. Still frozen. Okay. All right. We are going to pivot, and when the technology issue gets resolved, we'll circle back to Kevin. So moving on to our 2 panelists that are joining us from Sust Landscaping, Anna Kelly and Randall Hitchings. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi everybody. David gave us a little introduction there. Sust was founded in 2023, but we merged with a company that my mom had started actually in 2009. So we've been using electric equipment since then. So we've been in it for the long haul here. And yeah, we work in Montgomery County, Maryland, primarily. And yeah, using electric equipment over the years, it's obviously changed a lot since 2009. And we're so excited about how in recent years, it's really expanded in power, reliability, scope, what's available on the market, how many brands there are to choose from now, and how many types of equipment there are to choose from. It's really been awesome. And yeah, I would say our customers generally go with us either for the environmental side of things or because it's quiet. That's a major draw to the electric landscaping side of things. And one of the main challenges that we've had throughout is charging. So keeping all of our equipment batteries charged throughout the day. So the new company that we merged with, Sust, in 2023, we worked with them to develop a mobile charging system for landscapers called ChargeBot, which we can touch on a little bit later in more detail. But that's part of our business too, is selling these ChargeBots to other landscapers to help them stay powered throughout the day. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much for all 3 panels for your introduction. We are still working out the technology issues with David, and when he's back online, we will circle back to him. So with that, as a reminder, we are going to be moving into the facilitated portion of our discussion this evening. And I have a number of different questions that I will direct to the panelists to answer. And of course, again, time permitting, happy to take questions from our meeting participants as well. So let's talk a little bit more about the company background and motivation to get into this line of work, and why go electric. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see. David is on the line, and Kevin is still having some issues. So David, why don't we start with you? Can you just give us a little bit more background about the sort of key motivations to going electric? Did you hear from clients? Did you hear from, I know there's concerns about the environment. What other sort of driving factors brought you to open up Littlefoot Lawn Care?
Yeah, so the one factor was that I really enjoyed my experience in college working with Lynn at Solar Mowing, and that inspired me a lot to start my own business. And so it wasn't until the pandemic where I had nothing to do, locked down at home and all that, and my wife asked me, "Hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with your life right now?" I'm like, "Well, I want to start my own business." She's like, "Well, what kind?" I was like, "An electric lawn care service." I was like, "You should do it now, because guess what? Everyone is working from home right now. Everyone's kids are learning from home. And what did they notice? That their landscaper is loud and the fumes are getting into their house. They take a Zoom call. They got to go to the other side of their apartment or house in order to avoid that interruption and stuff." And so I was like, okay, now's the time to do it. Now's the time to launch it. And so for me, I've even back when I worked with Solar Mowing, like I was impressed by the electric tools. Just growing up as a kid, I would just mow my neighbor's lawns with a gas-powered mower. I never owned an electric one myself until I started working with Solar Mowing. And so at that point, I was like, this is the future. Like, just imagine if you're using a gas-powered mower to mow your lawn every week or hiring a service. Just imagine the tons and tons of emissions that are being spewed everywhere every year. And that can all be eliminated if you just switch the type of equipment you're using. And so that is what motivated me to start Littlefoot. And so and just the name is perfect for it. We're lawn care with a small footprint. Like we want to get your lawn looking amazing, looking great, with while minimizing our impact on the environment and your neighborhoods and all that.
Right, it's a powerful story. I appreciate that. And I'm curious, so when you opened your business, what type of response did you get? What was sort of the initial responses?
I I thought it was almost like the uh I don't know, just like I felt like there was this I felt like a hero a little bit. Like the first group I emailed or basically reached out to is a group called Quiet Clean Nova, and they're based out in Northern Virginia, and think a lot of their members are in town of Vienna and all that. And they were like, "Oh, amazing! We've been waiting for someone like you in Northern Virginia for a very long time, And so they've been huge supporters of the business and been promoting the business to other people, and so we got a lot of leads from them. However, it's not just them. It's just there's a market out there that when they finally Googled, battery powered lawn care and all that, something finally came up in the Northern Virginia area, and that was Littlefoot for them. And so many customers like, "Hey, I've been waiting for a service like you for the longest time." And it was a market that the traditional lawn care service could not tap into just because of the type of equipment they use. And so a lot of my first customers were people that mowed their lawn themselves with only battery powered mowers, and they wouldn't hire a gas powered company. They were that strict on it. They're like, "I don't care, I'm not going to have a gas mower on my lawn." And then Littlefoot came to save the day. So so it was a very, very good response. And the one struggle I had is that, like, I was only part-time at the time, and so I worked a full-time job. So I had to tell people, "Sorry, I have to put you on a waiting list because I can't mow every lawn." So the first year, started small with just 10 lawns and a few dozen other leaf cleanup customers, and said it remained very small for that. But yeah, the demand was very, very positive, and a lot of people really liked the idea.
Thank you. Sounds like you found that niche. So I'm going to move to Anna and Randall and ask the same question. So I know you talked a little bit about sort of the evolution of the business, but talk a little bit more, if you wouldn't mind, about other motivators that sort of drove you to continually evolve the company. And what was the community's response as you were sort of evolving and changing? And now you have actually, your charge bot that you're now selling to other landscaping companies. Just walk us through that.
Yeah, I would say similar story to David, where just so many people were so excited about this and had been waiting for something like this. We get emails from up and down the East Coast of people looking for a similar service in their area. And finally now there's other ones starting to pop up, but for a long time it was, sorry, our service area is only so large. So the demand for this is something that, is in our inbox all the time. And yeah, I think people love the environmental part of it too. People love that their kids can be napping when we come and we don't wake them up. Like, it's just not a disruptive part of their day. They're out working on their back deck and they don't need to go back inside. They can stay outside while we're there and we're not disrupting them. So I think just sort of fitting into people's lives with ease is something that has made a big difference to our community. They're not rushing inside to, shut the windows and the doors and bring their kids and pets inside. So yeah, I think it's just grown since the pandemic, like David was saying, and more people are home. I think that really has started to hit home, the demand, literally, for a lot of people. Yeah.
And for people with small children like myself, certainly appreciate not disrupting the ever so important nap.
Yes.
So yes. So now we're going to turn it to Kevin. And Kevin, if you wouldn't mind, we had lost you around. You were talking about your transition in the company, and we lost you at the point where you were talking about the robotics. So if you wouldn't mind sort of picking up where you left off, and then sort of moving into what has been your customers' response to your services, and any other reflections around sort of your motivation for doing this would be great.
Yeah, of course. I'm actually going to turn my camera off real quick, see if that helps a little bit. And yeah, so we transitioned to the robots because we just couldn't hire fast enough to keep up with the demand for the services. And we turned to the robots about 2 years ago, and since we were one of the only people in the country who now owns about 60 of these units, we became a dealer this year as well. So that way we can sell them all over the country and also really empower other landscapers as well to use them. And that's one of the ways that we're growing now, selling to other landscapers. And the reaction's been great. I think the robots in particular, they stay at the properties, and so they can actually mow multiple times a week. So customers, it's not like they're waiting for us, especially if they get delayed by rain, for example. With a typical landscaper, you're gonna have that issue, but with the robots, they're always there. Customers always know that they're gonna be there, and that kind of alleviates a lot of the battery issues for us as well. That's the cool things about them, is because they're staying at the customer's house and they're plugged into the customer's electricity. Then we don't have to worry about making sure that we have enough batteries for our mowers, and so it makes things easier for us as well.
Thank you. All right. So with any new technology, change in business, there are transition challenges. There are just challenges in general. And so I wanted to direct the next question to David, and ask if you could talk a little bit about the biggest challenges you faced using this technology, and how you've overcome them. Even sort of if you could walk us through some of that journey, because I know it wasn't just sort of an on and off switch. There was some learning as part of the process. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that'd be great.
Yeah, of course. So the biggest challenge with the running electric lawn care service, whether it's mowing, trimming, even leaf blowing and all that, is having enough power with you. And so one thing I didn't want is to have like a million batteries with me all day, just because it's a huge risk. I don't want to carry around $20,000 worth of equipment with me. And so that's where it's better to just have an on-the-go charging system, as Anna and Randall had mentioned earlier. And that's like a solar panel, simple enough solar panel. You connect it to it could be just a battery backup system that you create on your own. You DIY it, or you can buy they call them solar power generators, which is basically a battery backup that you can connect your solar panels to. And we use that in order to charge during the day. Now, of course, over time, as the business grew, as I moved on from being able to do 10 lawns a week, the power consumption was really high. And so basically nowadays what we have to do is like charge the battery banks overnight, put them in their vans, and then during the day we'll get the supplemental solar charge, which is great because we always have to ABC, which is always be charging the batteries no matter what, and so to keep us going. And so you have to have an on-the-go charging system. And then I guess a second challenge with the transition for this technology is this, that a lot, even though battery operated blowers have been around for at least 10, 15, actually a very long time. And the problem we have, at least I run into, is just the having a strong dealer network. So with as a commercial provider, if you're traditional gas powered lawn care service, your dealers, they know gas powered equipment in and out. They'll know how to fix it, they'll repair it and all that, and they'll have the parts. They'll have the parts that are available online and all that. But with a lot of this electric equipment, a lot of these manufacturers still trying to create their own dealer networks, trying to improve their supply chains and all that. And so that has taken a long time. And so, I mean, right now I've got an issue. I've got probably the most powerful backpack blower on the market today, which is the Greenworks BB361. But I have an issue. One of the straps is broken. And I've been waiting for at least a month for a replacement strap. It's not something I can just buy online. So that's just one little challenge, pain point that I have with it, because they're still trying to. They need that better improve their dealer infrastructure and parts and pieces and all that. Because at the end of the day, there's a lead time to get this stuff repaired. And so what I've done is that if I buy a piece of electric equipment, I should have two backups. One, it might be in the shop, and the other one has to be the backup just in case the primary one goes down. And so you need to have extra backup equipment with the electric.
And I'm just going to ask a follow-on question, because even though we're trying to hold the Q&A questions to the end, there is one that's sort of very relevant right now, which is in terms of backup. How many batteries do you think are required or how many batteries do you use in a typical day? Assuming that now, you're talking about having backups upon backup.
Mm-hmm.
But so, batteries, how many? Yeah.
Yeah. So I like to minimize them. So for each of our vans, we have about, it depends. Like if it's 5 amp, 8 amp batteries, the 8 amp batteries work phenomenally with the mowers. Guys can have 2 of them and just use them all day and just, recharge them using the system, the on-the-go system. And so some guys, they're fine with like 5 or 6 batteries. I feel more comfortable with like having 9 per vehicle. But all depends on, the mixture. For the trimmers, you have the 2.5 amps. They're a little smaller, lighter, and they charge faster, less than 30 minutes. And then you have the 5 amps, 8 amps for the blowers and mowers, which take a little bit longer, more than an hour to charge. And so I like to have anywhere from 6 to 9 batteries per vehicle. Now that's just for mowing, which is easier. But as for leaf blowing, that's where you have to, the electric leaf blowers just go through battery. However, the technology has improved a lot. And so with the brand I use, which is Greenworks Commercial, I like to use their 8 amp batteries, and they can last about, if it's a single battery, depending on what mode you're using, it could last about 45 minutes. Or if you have the 2, can last 2 batteries in your backpack blower, can last more than an hour with the 2 of them at like full blast, which is great. However, you need to have at least 10 to 16 batteries in a single day, just because you're going to go through a lot, especially with leaf blowing.
And that's per person or per team?
I would say per team. It really varies. And so again, if you're using, I guess a typical thing for us would be a quarter-acre lot with, let's say, a 3-man team with 3 blowers. So in an hour, we could go through 4 to 6 batteries. And so then you'd have to have one on the charger. And so just for a typical, let's say, a leaf cleanup that could take 1 to 2 hours and all that, we could use up probably 4 to 8 batteries. And then, however, that's not the challenge, is that you need to have batteries ready for the next property. And so you need to have, the 3-to-1 ratio in batteries. So 1 in use, 1 on the charger, 1 at rest. It's a good principle to have. So it can, but also too, if you have on-the-go systems and you have extra battery backups, and you can minimize the amount of batteries you have. It's just that you just got to have the capability to just charge them really quickly so they're ready for the next job.
That seems like a challenge. And because I know everyone's thinking the same question, which is, or many of us may be thinking the same question, which is, how much do the batteries cost you? And I know that they're different for every model and size, but just on average, what are you paying per battery? Excuse me.
8-amp battery for the leaf blowers. Look at $400 to $450 each battery, and so it is quite the investment. However, if you believe in the battery technology, believe in not using gas and all that, it is 100% worth it.
Thank you. Appreciate your detailed response there. So I'm going to move to Kevin. We're going to switch it up in terms of order. Kevin, since you have done things a little differently and are using robotics as well, would you mind talking a little bit about your challenges that you've seen in the transition, the use of electric leaf blowers and just robotics in general?
Yeah, definitely. I think the challenge is kind of convincing people that the technology works. That was something we had even before we did the robots. People would see us with the electric hedge trimmers, electric blowers, and without even giving us a try, would be like, "Oh, that's probably not going to work. That's probably junk." And and I feel like sometimes with some customers who, if they're not really your target customer, it's almost like a bit of a target on your back. I feel like they're looking for things that are wrong with what you're doing, because they want to be able to say, "Oh, look, like, my old landscaper did a great job, and now you're using this electric equipment, and it's not getting everything." But we're finding ways to get around that. We used to do a lot more. We used to rely on digital ads and Google ads, but now we're doing a lot more going out to expos and fairs and community events where we actually have the robots set up, going back and forth. And I think that giving people a chance to see the equipment, let them try it out for themselves, and kind of a no pressure environment is good, because it gives them a chance to kind of see it before they actually sign up with their services. And I think the fact that they see that we're so confident that we're going to let them play around with the equipment and see it up close before we show up to their house gives them the confidence to know that that we believe in the equipment, and that is enough to convince a customer. Because there's always going to be like a group of very dedicated people who are really committed to switching over, who really can't stand the noise, really can't stand the pollution, but then trying to grow out of that and just reach a broader audience is the challenge that we're facing. But again, we're finding ways to overcome that now.
Thank you. All right, and Anna and Randall, same question to you. So how, as part of your as your company has been growing, what have been those challenges in using electric landscape equipment, in particular leaf blowers?
Yeah, I think big time, like piggybacking off what David said, the charging part of it, not just for the range anxiety part of like, am I going to have enough power to get through my workday? Am I even going to have to think about whether I have enough batteries and those logistics? But the other piece of that is just the charging in general, and how much power do you have in the space that you your workshop, most companies like we have a leased workspace, and we only have access to so much power coming from the grid. And that scalability issue, it kind of compounds pretty quickly as more and more crews need those amount of batteries to get them through the day. So when you're coming home or back to your shop with 40 batteries in each crew, that means you've got way too much to maybe charge for what you have access to, or you've got somebody sitting at the shop spending hours rotating those batteries, kind of babysitting, making sure breakers aren't tripping and that kind of stuff, which takes a lot of time at the end of the day. So really the charging piece of it during the day solved so many of our issues because we were able to just eliminate all those headaches. We've got things to the point where, like kind of what David was saying about, it's you want a three battery kind of thing, one ready to go, one on the charger, one on the piece of equipment. That actually cuts down the amount that you're using actually by about a third. So like some of the companies we've worked with, solving their charging issues with ChargeBot, they've got a 4-man crew where they were toting 50 batteries onto their vehicle to get through the day, which, you do the math on that, you're looking at $20,000 basically in just batteries, let alone the equipment, the cost of charging and all that kind of stuff. So the piece of it for the growing and the bigger some of the commercial companies is really pretty tricky. Some of the issues that they had working with, the power companies, it was going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars in power upgrades to their shop, which they didn't even own. So that's money invested in something that you're not going to get back, so solving the charging piece has been big for us. It's been big for some of these commercial companies. And I think, that's been a big key.
That's what we've been hearing as well, just in our engagement is the charging is sort of a challenge that we have to overcome. But it sounds like you all have worked out a couple of different ways to address that, creative ways too. And one of the other questions, and I'm not sure that this is a challenge or concern, is that we've heard is about theft in the batteries. I mean, the batteries are expensive, and as David mentioned, and so that, what we heard was you can't just leave the batteries to charge like anywhere, right? That there really does have to be some level of security, just because it can be quite an investment. Have you experienced any of that, or concerns, or heard about that at all?
We have not, and that's something we've been we've had on our radar too going forward as more companies are switching to electric. I think more people are going to be aware that, hey, like these things have value. They're sitting on these trailers. They're sitting on your van. But that's actually kind of another. It's actually another benefit of being able to charge, throughout the day, is that you're not keeping $20,000 of batteries on your truck. You maybe got, a third of that. So at least it's not, eliminating that risk factor. But I will say, I think that theft is honestly a kind of a it's in the gas industry as well, having blowers stolen and stuff like that. So I think it'll be interesting to see if people start having those problems, or if security starts becoming an issue with batteries. But yeah, I mean, nothing that we've experienced so far.
And we do run out of vans versus like an open trailer, so that may have something to do with it too. There's different configurations of how crews run, and they may need to come up with some creative solutions for keeping batteries safe throughout the day, for sure.
Thank you. So moving on, I mean, we touched on sort of the customer response aspect of your businesses, but I'm curious if you've heard from members of the community, like neighboring property owners, about sort of while you're doing the work, do they, what has been their reaction, if at all? And I'll just, Anna and Randall, go ahead and take it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say sort of answers your previous question too, but we have done so little marketing over the years for our business, because people walk by, they see it, their neighbors walk by and see, so it really like sells itself. We easily kind of can get streets lined up pretty well because everybody wants to contribute to that quiet atmosphere. So definitely very positive reactions from the neighbors and communities where we're working.
Yeah, it incites a lot of curiosity with people
It
walking
does.
by. Is that electric? You know, and that kind of response. So,
Especially like our
very-
bigger ride-on and stander mowers that people aren't aware that they come in electric versions. We get a
Right.
lot of curiosity.
very
about that.
positive, very
Yeah.
positive.
Which leads me to another question, which is, what are those questions that you're receiving about the electric equipment?
The number one question is how long does the battery last? And it's so funny because that question can be answered 1,000 different ways depending on what piece of equipment you're using it in, what size the battery is. Like David was saying, you know, you've got different kinds of batteries for different pieces of equipment. So people are really curious about that. And all I say is, you know, we work all day long and don't even think about power. So, you know, it's not really a concern.
Great, thank you. David, did you have anything to add to that? Any the neighboring properties, are they asking you questions? What types of questions are they asking you about your work?
Yeah, so like yeah, I'm going to piggyback off of what Anna and Randall were sharing, but yes, people are just curious. They'll notice like, oh, it's a little bit quieter, or they'll notice like, oh, you know what, that isn't gas. Like sometimes they're like, they see someone mowing professionally, they're like, oh, that's not a gas mower. You know, they're expecting for it to be a gas powered piece of equipment, and then they're like, is that battery? Is that electric? Oh, okay. What brand is? A lot of times they kind of ask like, what kind of brand it is. What brand is it? Because you know, a lot of times they're interested in themselves and either upgrading their own battery powered equipment or like switching from gas to electric. And so a lot of times they always ask me like, yeah, what brand do you use? What brand? So yeah, people are very curious. And also what's kind of nice too is that I just want to mention that with electric lawn care services, it's something, and no other service can say this, is that your neighbors benefit from the service, your community benefits from it too. So when you sign up with us, when you sign up with SUS, with Serenity Lawns and all that, like the whole benefit that you're providing a service to the community as well, because there's no fumes and there's less noise. And so I remember getting an actual not a customer, but a neighbor of a customer came to me. This was last year. I was doing an event in City Falls Church, and they came up to me and said, you know, you don't know me, but I love your service. And it's because their neighbor used my service since 2021. They're like, we absolutely love you guys. We don't use you, but we love you guys just because you guys are quiet. You know, so that was one of the best compliments we get. But yeah, neighbors are noticing, that the benefits of their neighbors using an electric lawn care service.
Great, thank you. And I will just follow up and ask, so do your customers, assuming that they've had a different landscaping company that used gas-powered leaf blowers, do they expect the same price for the service?
That's a good question. So pricing is always an issue, is always a funny subject. But basically, when I first started, I needed to get customers, and so initially my prices were a little too high. I couldn't get anyone for the first month, so I had to kind of drop it a little bit. However, over time, I realized that that was not the way to do it, because the way an electric lawn care service is run is very different than a way traditional gas-powered lawn care services run. So, and what I mean is that you have to charge higher prices. There's a great value proposition there, and there's money left on the table if you don't charge a higher price, especially if you're using push mowers to do the properties. Because one thing is, a lot of people complain about, and they actually make the switch to us because we use smaller battery powered push mowers. Yeah, most lawn care services, okay, they'll charge a price to get it done, but they're using larger ride-on mowers and creating ruts, causing issues on the properties and stuff, and actually causing more damage. And so a lot of people switch to us just because we're using lighter, smaller equipment. And so, but anyway, yeah, there's a greater value proposition there for electric service, so we have to charge higher than the normal service.
Thank you, David. Now to you, Kevin, same question. Are your customers expecting a similar sort of pricing pricing for particularly leaf blowing, but feel free to answer it more broadly as well.
So when we first started, the very first phone call I ever got was someone saying, "Hey, I think I'm interested in your services. I think you should charge more because the value that you're providing us is like insane, and our prices were basically in line with what other landscapers were charging." And we had other customers who just volunteered to pay more. They said we told them it'd be $50 a week to mow. They said, "Hey, that's what I paid my last landscaper. I'll pay you guys 60 if that like helps you, like it helps the cause and helps you guys get your services going." Because people really see that value proposition. I think by my math, like there's no reason that we should need to, because although we do have higher upfront costs, we save so much money on gas that I think our prices could be somewhat in line. But again, we have this added value proposition. There are customers out there who are willing to pay more, and we're volunteering to pay more. So for that reason, we said, why not? Why not take that money and then reinvest that in the community and use that to kind of fuel our efforts to, again, support other landscapers and switching over to electric equipment and keep advocating for this equipment.
And Kevin, thank you. And while I have you, switching to performance of the electric leaf blowers in particular, but just again in general, if you'd like to respond that way, do you see the difference in performance between, assuming you have a good sort of handle on the gas-powered leaf blowers, do you see the difference in the performance?
I think, I'm not going to lie. I think that there is definitely a difference in performance that, there are times, a minority of cases where, you're dealing with a property that hasn't had a cleanup in months and the leaves are wet. And those are times when you might say, then I do kind of think to myself, man, it'd kind of be nice to have an Echo 9010, like a really powerful gas blower. But I think on a regular basis, you don't notice it. When we're throughout the season, when we're just mowing and you're just blowing clippings off a driveway, electric equipment has more than enough power. For small cleanups, they're great. For larger cleanups, we've just kind of adapted our techniques so that they work for the blowers. So for other properties, a lot of landscapers use their blowers to blow all the leaves from, off the lawn, from the backyard of the property down to the street. And they have a leaf vac that they can, suck up the leaves with, and that'll mulch it up. We would not have the power to do that effectively. But then what we say instead is, okay, we'll just mulch up the leaves with our lawnmower and just run them over where they are, so we don't have to rely on really powerful blowers. And that way we're still able to get the job done, but it's just a lot more efficient.
Thank you. And we actually, Parks and Recreation, the Department of Parks and Recreation transitioned its entire fleet of handheld gas-powered landscaping equipment to electric, and we are 100% transitioned for sort of normal operations, for including leaf blowers and string trimmers, et cetera. And that was the exact same experience that we had when we were making that transition, was that we had to change how we blew leaves, and rather than consolidate them in big areas, we may have smaller groupings of leaves. We may leave the leaves and put them into landscaping beds. So we've tried a number of different techniques to reduce our overall power needs, and it's worked out so far so good, according to our division chief for Parks and Natural Resources, who is overseeing those operations. He's shared with me that it's working out quite well. So thank you for that. So Anna and Randall, can you share some cost implications, talk a little bit more about potential long-term savings, if there are any, with your services, right? We talked a little bit about how, Kevin mentioned it, maybe on balance, the costs are generally the same, gas-powered leaf blowers versus electric. But can you just expand upon that a little bit more from your perspective?
Yeah, undoubtedly, you're paying an upfront cost to get that piece of equipment and get the batteries you need to do the work. But ultimately, I mean, each year you're going to be saving money on gas and oil and repairs and things like that. I mean, I think it goes without saying. So I think what we've estimated is that payback period is between 2 and 4 years, depending on how you're using the equipment and things like that. So ultimately, people are not wrong about that upfront cost being there, but it really kind of plays itself out over time.
I think that's one of the concerns that we've been hearing is the upfront cost relative to the sort of down the road savings, and the concern that, when would I see my return on investment? So thank you for sharing. So looking forward, right? How do you see the landscaping industry evolve in terms of adopting electric equipment and sustainable lawn care practices? And I'll just stick with you, Anna and Randall, since I have you on screen.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting that companies like ours are popping up all over the country. So, where they may have been kind of concentrated on the coast in the past, we are seeing that fill in, and more people are getting excited about this. There's more and more press around it. More people are learning about it. So I feel like it's really exponentially grown in the last 2 to 5 years, and I expect that to continue at a good pace going forward. And then some of the things that you had touched on, like changing practices with leaf cleanups. I don't want to make it seem as though you can't do traditional leaf cleanups with leaf blowers, because you certainly can, but I think it does maybe inspire some creativity around those things that we've just done for years and years without really thinking about, leaves must go kind of mentality. Like, let's think, can we actually leave the leaves on the beds? And that sort of thing is, helping insects and creating habitat, creating better soil, improving lawns by mulching the leaves into the grass to actually get, greener lawns in the spring, which everybody wants. So sort of just using this as an opening to think about how we are looking at our landscapes in general, and helping people think about how their small pieces of land, their properties can connect, and that we really are creating an ecosystem. How we treat our lawns has a huge impact on our local communities, and the more people that think about these things and that focus on the environmental implications of their lawn care can make a huge difference. So, yeah.
And I'll just add that one of the main motivations for solar mowing in the beginning was sustainability, the whole sustainability part of it. Like, can we put solar panels on the trucks and get power that is not only coming from the grid, but is completely renewable? And that's kind of one of the exciting things that we've seen on the ChargeBot side. Is we've gotten a lot of outreach in California, Texas, companies that where costs are high to have their facilities and may not be able to have power, they're putting solar panels on their vans, on their trailers, powering their operation completely off grid, from mowers to trimmers to blowers. And the fact that that technology is just going to keep getting better, and people are going to adapt to that, I think that's a really cool piece of it. The fact that you might be able to not only do the same job and eliminate the emissions that you're putting off, but be completely renewable is totally possible.
Thank you. Yeah. It's exciting times in terms of deploying solar, for sure. So question for you, David. We talked about sort of the landscaping, like the landscaping field growing and evolving. What role do you think landscapers can play in advocating for broader adoption of eco-friendly practices? So I'm not necessarily one type of piece of equipment over another, but just eco-friendly practices in general.
Yeah, so I think I think electric equipment and more sustainable practices go hand in hand. And I think one thing that helped drives it is just, there might be some, power limitations and stuff. And so what's kind of nice is that, it, begs the question, like, oh, do you need to really remove all the leaves from the property? And what's interesting is that I've had plenty of customers ever since I started that, they only want a portion of their leaves taken care of. They want to leave portions of the property just untouched, to leave, habitats for pollinators and over the winter time, and also saves them time, also saves them money. There's been plenty of customers where, like, what, why am I blowing all the leaves off of my acre lot or quarter acre lot or whatever, when I can just do it just around my house, that's, I don't want leaves up against my house. I'm okay with it being in the flower beds and the wooded areas and all that. Like, that's okay that it can stay there. And so we got plenty of customers wanting to do that. And so as a role of a landscaper, or at least, eco-friendly landscaper, is that you want to educate the customers and just kind of give those options. I mean, there are some customers, and I see it just from a sales perspective, is like there's some clients that, oh, you want to do a leaf clamp? All right, here's the price. And then they might say no. I'm like, well, here's some other options. How about this? We only take care of, half the property, or we'll just do it around the house. We'll do I call them mulch mows, where we just blow everything out of the beds and into the lawn and just, mulch them up into the property. And then if there's an excess amount of leaves on the lawn, we blow it back into the beds and they can serve as mulch over the winter time. And so yeah, there's a lot of new practices. And so I think, but just to come back to what I was saying, is that electric equipment and eco-friendly practices go hand in hand. And so I think eventually, services, as it starts to transition, I think they'll start to look at other services they provide, such as, fertilizers, or go, maybe use more natural organic options, maybe move away from the traditional, toxic pesticides, and go with more of the eco-friendly options. Because again, there's a market there, and you just got to tap into it. And so once you promote yourself as an electric service, or that uses electric equipment, customers are going to ask, well, okay, we'll use electric mowers. Like, do you use, eco-friendly pesticides, or this or that? And so there's the transition is eventually go in that direction, in my opinion.
Thank you. And then my final question, and we have a couple of questions from that were put into the Q&A, so we'll move to those in a moment. But my final question, and it feels somewhat fitting to ask Kevin this question, which is, are there any other emerging technologies or innovations in electric landscaping equipment that you're excited about?
Yeah, well, I think you already know what my answer to that is going to be. I think the robots are really exciting. There are so many different types that are coming out. For a long time they've existed, but I think that the reason why the robots haven't taken off is they can't do all the services. They can't completely replace your landscaper. But what I think landscapers are starting to realize is that if we as landscapers adopt the technology, we can fill in the gaps of what the robots can't do. But what this means now is that customers get the additional benefit of the robots. But for us, it means our job gets easier. We're not out there, trying to rush and get things done before the rain, or pushing the limits where it's drizzling, but we're still going to be out working to try and get things done for the customer. It's a lot safer for us now, because our job now is just to focus on the robots, fixing the robots, programming them. And so, I feel like our technicians, we call them, feel like, like they're doing a lot higher work than they were doing before, because your job is not just to be behind a push mower all day. You're really pushing the boundaries now of technology, and at the same time, not only is it safer and good for us, but the customers are happier. And so it's really a win-win for everybody. And they're coming out with robots that can work in all different types of conditions. They're also coming out with autonomous electric mowers now that you can set up and have them just go back and forth. Even like zero turns, really big mowers that'll just operate on their own. So I think autonomous equipment is really the biggest market to keep an eye on.
Great, I appreciate that. So that concludes sort of my set of questions that I had. But given some of the questions that we have related to the robotic mowing, I'm going to just keep you on the line here, Kevin, and ask, is there a lot size limitation for robotic mowing?
No, not at all. So the biggest property, the biggest robot that Husqvarna makes can do, I believe, up to 18 acres. It's designed for commercial applications. We have customers. I think our biggest property that a homeowner that we work with has 10 acres, and we're also working with golf courses now as well. They make really big robots, and then also if you have an even bigger property than 18 acres, you can just have multiple robots on one property. So there really is no limitation for the robotic equipment.
Thank you. And one other follow-up on robotic mowing. is it a challenge to use the robots in hilly sort of environments? If it's particularly steep, is that going to cause a problem? I imagine it does in any case, but thoughts?
No, so actually, Husqvarna makes robots that have all-wheel drive that are specifically for hilly environments. The straw that broke the camel's back that made me say robots is the way that we have to go is I had some of my employees mowing a backyard that was very hilly. I told them don't take the zero turn back there. It's wet, it's hilly, it's gonna slide down. One of them locked us out of our garage, so I had to go back and deal with that. And while I was away, they sent me a picture. They completely ignored what I said, took the mower to the backyard, slid down a hill, smashed into a customer's brand new pool fence, and worst of all, someone could have gotten hurt. And then after that, I said, look, like this manual mowing stuff, is really, really dangerous. We have to come up with a safer solution. And Husqvarna has these robots designed specifically for hills. And so the first properties we set the robots up at were ones where it was really steep and dangerous for us to mow manually. And they actually do a better job than we could because they don't create ruts in the ground, and they're able to provide a much more consistent cut.
Great, thank you. Okay, all right. So we are going to go back to some of our other questions that we weren't able to answer sort of as part of the facilitated part of the discussion. So recently developed leaf blowers blow less air, but they blow the air faster to be comparable to gas-powered blowers. The high-speed air they blow sounds like the scream of a jet engine. How should companies manage the noise for such blowers? And I will maybe turn to David.
Yeah, there's certainly, well, one thing is that depending on the blower, depending on the manufacturer, the decibel rating on the leaf blower might be pretty high. Now the thing is that what's nice about electric equipment is that there is a very much a big difference if you were to hear it from like 50 feet away. You certainly would hear a gas-powered still BR600, like in Lake Barcroft, you hear them across the lake. I have customers there, and they just roar across the lake. But with the electric ones, it's not going to travel as far. But one thing is too is that still you want to wear ear protection. Especially when you're using your battery blowers on a higher setting, because it can get really loud for the operator and for the person next to them. And so if you got a team of 4, team of guys, doing a leaf cleanup and stuff, I always tell the guys like, just be mindful of how close you are, because basically where the little, I guess let's just call it the intake or whatever, can get pretty loud, and so you want to stand to the right of someone. But that's if you're using like the blower on the highest setting, and a lot of times you're not really doing that unless you're really going through a big pile. But yet again, with the battery blowers, a lot of times they're just powerful enough to just, okay, well, you spend an extra minute or two on the second highest setting, so you're not having to use the most powerful option, which also has the highest noise. And so, yeah, but get as well. So that's what I suggest.
Great, thank you, David. So we are almost at time, and wanted to make sure to give everybody the last word. So any final thoughts or comments, David? Like to share?
Yeah, just real quick, I think it's great that the Arlington County is looking at this ordinance. I mean, since the dawn of since the creation of the lawn in the 40s and 50s, people have been complaining of gas-powered equipment on those early Saturday mornings from for forever. And so I think approaching it from a noise ordinance perspective is good. And the thing is, I think it's going to be a very healthy change for the community. I mean, less noise. You got less fumes or no fumes. You get happier and more healthier communities because of this. And it's a good change, and the industry is going in that direction anyway. I mean, you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, you try to buy yourself a gas-powered piece of equipment, even for a homeowner. 90%, 95% of the stuff on the shelves is battery. So the industry is going that direction. And so, Arlington is going to help accelerate that. Anyway, I just think it's a good change. And even for the commercial landscape provider, it's going to be worth it. The crews are going to love you for it if you transition to that.
Thank you, David. Kevin, any final thoughts?
Yeah, my final thought would be that electric equipment is great for business. It's great for landscaping companies, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And also sustainability. So many of our customers seek us out and pay us the same, or pay us actually more than they were paying their last landscaper to have us do less work. They're like, hey, actually leave the leaves in my flower bed. Just mulch up the leaves. Don't take them to a dump and pay a dump fee. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy that their old landscaper was doing all those things against their wishes, and will do all this extra work. So I think sustainability is such a win-win for everybody, and it's very much the same thing with the electric equipment. I think landscapers need to remember who the customer is. It's not the lawn, it's not the leaves. Their customer is a human being living inside of the house. And every customer I've talked to said, hey, if it's between mulching our leaves and there are maybe a little bit of pieces leaves left on our lawn, but my daughter can study for the SATs, they're like, I'd rather do that. It's not worth the noise to get rid of the pollution, to get rid of every single piece of leaf on the lawn. And it's also good for business. So I think that's the biggest thing I would try to communicate.
Thank you, Kevin. And Anna and Randall.
I think they summed it up nicely. But I'll just say that, we're excited to see other communities doing this as well. And, if anybody has questions or needs a resource about anyone who's doing it, feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say too, if the last time you tried an electric leaf blower was 5 or 10 years ago, try again. They've come a really long way. There's a lot of different brands out there. If you're not happy with one brand, try another. Like, there is a piece of equipment out there for you that you will love. I guarantee it. And yeah, I think, other electric landscapers that we've talked to are all really open. We're all excited about this. Like, there's more than enough lawns out there for any of us. So yeah, we're happy to talk about any more detailed questions about, challenges that you're specifically facing or things that you want help figuring out. Like, we're more than happy to help along the way. Yeah.
So thank you very much, all four of you, for spending time with us this evening. We did get a couple of questions related to very specific property sort of needs, and I think some folks might be interested in getting a sense of what the cost of blowing leaves and removing them might be on their property. So what we're going to do, I'm just sharing with the sort of our attendees, we will share all of the panelists' names, their company information, contact information with you following the conclusion of this webinar, so that you can feel free to reach out to them directly and ask those questions. And then there was one final question, and this was directed to the county. What do you expect to change during the delay between when the new regulation is approved and when it becomes effective? So want to be clear, we are only in the engagement sort of phase of our review and consideration of a potential prohibition on gas-powered leaf blowers. So no decisions have been made. As part of the engagement, and again, go to arlingtonva.us, search leaf blowers. There's still time to fill out the feedback form. And in that, we ask about a transition period. So if the county board were to decide to amend the noise ordinance to prohibit gas-powered leaf blowers, should there be a transition time before the ordinance becomes enforceable? And we gave some options: 18 months, 24 months, 36 months. And this is just based on national benchmarking that we conducted. Certainly those don't have to be the timeframes that we land on, but wanted to give folks an opportunity to something to react to, if you will. So more to come on that. We have a QR code. You can certainly just take a snap of that, and then it'll take you directly to the feedback form. Again, I want to thank our panelists for a wonderful discussion on electric leaf blowers and all the other electric landscaping equipment. You all have been doing an incredible amount of work in this area, and we appreciate your time this evening to share a little bit about your experience in that field. So with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening and for staying on an extra 6 minutes. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, certainly feel free to reach out to us. Our information is on the leaf blower website as well. Take care and good night.